Okay. Bánh xèo. Bun means cake, but in this case we're referring to something that is more like of a very thin pancake, or a crepe. And then xèo is for the sound that the batter does when it hits a very hot skillet. And so today we're gonna make sizzling pancakes. It will be crunchy, savory, delicious. You're just gonna fall in love with it. First, we're going to chop and slice everything that needs to be chopped and sliced, starting with the scallion and the shallots. You want quite a bit of texture and crunch in the bánh xèo, so don't go too thin on the chopping. Then comes the pork belly block. Look at these glorious layers of fat. Notice how the skin on the upper part was already removed. That'll make it easier for the fat to melt in the pan later on. The fatter the piece, the better. As for the shrimp, depending on the size of the ones you're using, you might want to slice them in two. Once your proteins are all sliced up, it's time to season them. Add sugar, salt, a little bit of chicken stock powder for that extra punch of flavor, and if you happen to have some in your house, some freshly ground black pepper. Now, normal black pepper will also do. Make sure all the ingredients get to know each other very well, and let them hang out for 15 minutes. That should be enough time for us to prep the batter. In a large bowl, add your rice flour and your cornstarch. Oops. Also incorporate your teaspoon of turmeric powder and your pinch of salt. Add 1 cup of warm water and start folding in your dry ingredients until your paste reaches a consistency that's like a Play-Doh. Then grab a can of coconut milk, pour half of it into the bowl. Fold and make all of the batter lumps disappear. Then pour the rest of the milk in. As a result, you should get a thick and opaque liquid. This is the good stuff that we'll use to create the sizzling batter.
Cooking time!
I personally find it easier to use a non-stick pan, but the pros will use a normal pan with lots of oil to ensure nothing gets stuck to the bottom. So first step, regardless of the pan that you use, cover the pans with a generous dose of oil. Add a few slices of onions and pork. When the pork is halfway cooked, throw in the shrimps. Now comes the fun part. While doing a circular motion with a hand holding a pan, pour a full scoop of batter liquid on top of the cooking ingredients. If necessary, patch the holes with extra batter. Basically, you want the batter to stretch out and to form a thin circular layer all over the pan. Cover for a good 5 to 7 minutes, depending on your size pan. For an extra crispy bánh xèo, brush the edges of the pancake with extra oil. Fold the bánh xèo in two.
Et voila!
I burned that first one a bit too much, but I promise things get better with practice. And you'll have plenty of chances to practice, since this recipe will allow you to cook between 12 and 20 bánh xèo. Don't worry if you destroy 1 or 2 pancakes along the way. I call these the chef's tasting samples. This one seems good on the crunch, but is still a little bit too burnt to my liking. Now that's a good looking one. Woo! Let's look at the crunch. It is not as thin as it could be, but you know, you gotta start somewhere in life, and I'm starting here. Not bad. But the filling is just right on point. I mean, I could have put a little bit more meat, but definitely the fattiness of the pork is so gratifying. Add more fatty pork in every single portion. Definitely worth it. You put your piece of bánh xèo in it and then you wrap it. Now, because my gigantic piece is a little bit too gigantic, I'll need a second lettuce. Even my non-optimized version is good, so imagine the real deal. So this is it for this week's recipe. Let me know what you thought of it. As always, thank you so much for coming along my culinary adventures. If you're new to this channel, make sure to subscribe, and on this, I'll see you next time.